We're here to talk about the card that was this weekend, UFC 254, and what a card it was. Obviously, we're going to focus mainly on the main event and the co-main event. We're going to talk about some football stuff later, some YouTube boxing stuff later, but we got to get to this main event, UFC 254, Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. And man, coming into this fight, Justin Gaethje was the guy. Justin Gaethje was the guy to dethrone the Eagle at the top of the mountain at 155. This guy had said, done everything you wanted to see or hear out of a guy that was going to try to unseat an undefeated 28-0 fighter. Justin was talking about how he wanted to make Khabib bleed. He wanted to make him fight Justin's fight, not the fight that Khabib always fights where he finds ways to bend guys to his will. He wanted to see what happened. What is Khabib's reaction when he sees his own blood, when things don't go his way, when I push him against the cage, when I push him to deep waters in this fight. And these guys have been wrestling since the same age. They had mirror kind of upbringings as far as just being in wrestling and focused as athletes for so long. Justin Gaethje, just that sheer unhinged personality that didn't have anything to hold back. You thought this was the guy. This was the guy. He wasn't afraid of the mythos of Khabib. He wasn't afraid of the man. And he came into this fight on a mission to prove everybody. They are managed by the same manager. And Justin was saying he was trying to ruin his manager's day. He wanted to ruin the day of all Khabib's friends. He wanted to ruin the day of Dana White in the UFC. This was the guy. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't. Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, what can you say about this guy other than he might be the greatest fighter I've ever seen? And I say that with very high regard because I've always considered John Jones to be the greatest fighter I've seen with these two eyes. And listen, I got some nice peepers here, but it doesn't change the fact that Khabib Nurmagomedov has inserted himself into that conversation, especially with this win. So as we go into this fight, we're going to break it down technically in a second, but we go into this fight, it's almost a polar opposite. It's Justin having everything going for him, the hype, the fight with Tony Ferguson, the mindset of him and his team coming into this, his health, his great footwork, his ability to scramble and look like a kind of a nightmare matchup for Khabib, a guy that could, chop at Khabib's legs. Like I said, scramble, use his footwork to stay off the cage and possibly hit Khabib with big power shots. And we know that Khabib sometimes gets walked back by guys that hit hard. But in this fight, it was the complete opposite, man. You had Khabib coming in, obviously the tragic loss of his father, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. It was weighing on him. He had a terrible weight cut. We know his weight cuts to 155 are always hard, but this one looked especially rough as he got on the scale and didn't really look like he knew if he was going to make the weight or not. And, obviously he makes that weight, and then he's walking to the cage. Even his walkout to the cage, he's, more somber, more to himself, within himself, and it didn't look like a guy that necessarily wanted to be in the biggest fight of his life. And then they yell go, and the referee says fight, and this dude does just that. Khabib Nurmagomedov, immediately from the opening bell, goes right after Justin Gaethje. And again, I didn't expect this. I did not expect Khabib to come out and control Justin Gaethje with his jab. Now, if we're talking about the first round in general, Justin did a good job with a couple of things. He chopped at the legs of Khabib Nurmagomedov. He was able to land inside and outside with those leg kicks, but it didn't seem to faze Khabib. Khabib put Justin on the back foot. He put Justin Gaethje against the cage. He started controlling Justin on the stand-up with the jab. Now, we've seen that Khabib's pace is insatiable, but we usually think of that as him getting you to the ground and not letting you up. In this fight, it was different. It was Khabib Nurmagomedov pushing the pace on Justin in the stand-up. He was pushing forward. No respect for Justin's power. No respect for Justin's footwork, any kind of technique. He was cutting off the cage. He was putting Justin on the back foot and making him fight behind that black line. If you guys have ever watched the UFC and you see the octagon, it has a little black line separating the center of the cage from like the little warning track, if you will. Right next to the fence. And Justin stayed behind that line pretty much the entirety of this fight because Khabib was he had so much forward pressure on him. And again, this jab that Khabib has developed, listen, I know he's unorthodox in his striking, and sometimes a bit wild and crazy and not as polished, but his jab, since he's been with American Kickboxing Academy, aka up in Sacramento, Daniel Cormier, who likes to take credit for it, but I'm sure it's more of Javier Mendez with a combination of Daniel, Luke Rockhold, Cain Velasquez. He has learned a very airtight jab, and he controlled Justin with that, meaning he basically just kept Justin at bay, right? He kept Justin where he wanted him to be. Justin was either too far out of range to hit Khabib, or he was getting tagged with that jab every time he came in close. So it seemed as if Khabib was not only, winning the stand-up exchanges, even though I think 2 out of the 3 judges actually gave the first round to Justin Gaethje, I think because of the leg kicks and his ability to sprawl a couple of those takedowns somewhat early. Khabib did seem to dominate with that jab moving forward. And again, just forward pressure on Justin. He couldn't breathe. It was almost like Justin was fighting retroactively. He was fighting defensively. Those leg kicks, they didn't have the sting that they would if he was the aggressor like we thought he would be, like he has been for 24 fights. It was more of a defensive striking, whereas Justin usually loves to come forward, throw some big-time shots, move his feet, especially recently, move his feet, cut angles, and hits you with stuff aggressively moving forward. This fight seemed to be Justin just trying to keep, and like everybody else, trying to keep Khabib off him. Hitting him with the leg kicks, but more like, okay, listen, stay back, stay off me. I have these leg kicks, and he would throw some wild shots too, just massive overhands, hooks. Again, just stuff to try to keep Khabib off him and get his attention and say, look, I'm still here. I know you're pushing me, but hey, don't get too close. Don't get too close as he's backing up against that cage. And I've never seen Justin fight like that. Listen, there's something to be said for the greatness of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and not just the things I've already told you, his development of the jab, obviously his grappling, which we're going to talk about in a second, how he was able to get where he was and finish the fight, his wrestling, his pressure, all that's great, but your ability to make someone fight in a way they have never fought, to adjust their entire game plan, their entire fight style, their techniques for you, that's pure greatness. That is, listen, we've seen it now with Justin. Justin fought defensively, fought off the back foot, basically walked himself back into the cage. We saw it with Conor being very cautious about the takedowns, especially in the open cage, trying to learn more wrestling than implementing his own aggressive forward style. He makes guys change fundamentally the way they fight just for him. Justin Gaethje was 22-2, being the aggressor, throwing caution to the wind, now implementing footwork, being more tight, slowing things down, and landing big shots. He was 22-2 doing that. And then all of a sudden, we see this Justin Gaethje that is backward moving, very wild with his shots without any kind of follow-ups, happy feet, moving his feet a lot but not really going anywhere, and just kind of with that hunkered down stance ready for a takedown to come in so he can sprawl and move away. We don't see that a lot from Justin. Actually, we've never seen that from Justin Gaethje. And that's just a testament to how good Khabib is. He makes guys fundamentally fight the way he wants them to fight. It's crazy. He takes away all their strengths without even doing anything. Before they even get in the cage, he's taken away Justin's biggest strengths. That's insane. You don't see that. And that's why he's the greatest lightweight to ever walk the planet. So anyway, round 1, like I said, Justin did a good job of landing the leg kicks inside and out. But again, Khabib walked right through everything, peppered Justin with the jab. Toward the end of the round, he finally gets that takedown. And another big part of this fight was the ability of Khabib on top to transition so smoothly between positions. And this is, again, a hole in Justin Gaethje's game that we haven't really seen because no one's ever really been able to hold him down. But when Khabib was on top, it was almost effortless for him to move from full guard to half guard to almost mounted crucifix to then transition to arm bar. Like he was moving between, and this is a matter of seconds. Justin Gaethje had no answer for it. And I don't know what the game plan was there, but I think that the obvious point was Justin didn't expect himself to be in that position. He was like, okay, if we get taken down, we're getting right back up. And he couldn't do it. It was, don't get taken down, don't put your back on the cage, and if you get down, get back up. And basically none of those things happen, right? The game plan, you can see him trying to implement it, but that was all he was trying to implement. That was it. And so at the end of round 1, Khabib is trying to pull at that arm, trying to finish the arm bar, and the horn sounds. Into round 2 we go, and Justin Gaethje's coach Trevor Whitman had a point that I don't know if it sat the way it should have with Justin, but it made sense in the moment, and it was super simple. Slow down. Justin was so frantic, and he was up and down, and his feet were moving. He wasn't going anywhere, and he was throwing these big shots, and then the leg kicks. Just slow it down. Make this fight come to you, right? Don't go out there and just give the fight to Khabib. Let it come to you. Let it stay there with him. See what he's got in the middle of the cage. You know, make him, if he's going to pressure forward on you, answer him with big shots, with the uppercuts, with the knees, the things that you work on, you know, for this fight to be aggressive instead of just regressing into fight defensively, hunker down, be ready for the shot, try to get your back off the cage, circle back, and let's do it again. Because Khabib's not going to stop coming forward. You have to get his respect with some sort of shot. You have to. And Justin wasn't able to do that. Coming into the second round, Khabib again takes over right from the opening whistle. He comes straight out and pressures Justin Gaethje, puts him on that back line, puts his back on the fence, and fairly quickly this time gets to where he wants to get to. Now, let's talk about the ending sequence of this fight because it was very interesting to see how it went. Because Justin didn't do a bad job initially in this last sequence. So Khabib has Justin pushed into the cage, and he goes in for the shot. As he goes in, Justin lands a decent leg kick, but off the leg kick, Khabib grabs a single leg and starts to go to Justin's body. Justin does a great job of sprawling, but you see a lot of guys when they sprawl, meaning they kick those legs back. They try not to let a wrestler grab onto either leg. When they sprawl those legs back against Khabib, most of the time they sprawl right into the fence, which is what he wants you to do. It's your legs can't go anywhere. So he just, again, chains together another shot and picks you up and puts you down on the cage where he wants to be, and it's over. Well, Justin didn't do that. He sprawled, but also flips his hips to get his hips away from the cage. And Khabib is so damn good that he just follows him. He just follows him with it and continues to chain wrestle. Then he grabs at the single. Then from the follow, he finds a way to Justin's back because now Justin's back is toward the center of the cage. Khabib just follows him right around and climbs onto his back, throws two hooks in, feet, I don't know why we call them hooks, two hooks in, and he's on Justin's back immediately and drags Justin to the ground. And from there, he takes back mount, transitions full mount to inverted triangle, and then allows Justin to get the top position to finish the triangle. It's a false sense of reality for Justin because Khabib goes to his back voluntarily, goes to his back to finish the triangle. Justin stacks him, but his arm is already caught in the triangle, so he's basically giving Khabib more leverage. As he tries to stack him down, Khabib just tightens up that triangle, and poor Jason Herzog, the referee, misses like 2 or 3 taps from Justin Gaethje. He was tapping like he was tap dancing with his hand on Khabib's head, and Jason Herzog didn't see it, and Khabib chokes him out. Khabib chokes Justin Gaethje out. The fight's over, and it's an amazing feat for a guy in Khabib Nurmagomedov that's had I mean, we've all had rough 2020s. This guy has had one of the worst years possible for anybody. And for him to go through all that adversity, we find out after the fight that he was also fighting on a broken toe. He'd had some sickness stuff. A guy is just tough as nails. And obviously, you know, what we're going to kind of talk about in a second, the passing of his father. It's a testament to a champion. It's a testament to his fortitude, to his work ethic, and to his father, that he was able to do all these things under such pressure and adversity. The fight itself was amazing. It was interesting to see Khabib good in different areas. We've seen a guy in Khabib that was 28-0 doing what he does, grappling you into the fence and either finishing you with ground and pound or submitting you. That's who Khabib is, and we got to see just little wrinkles of intricacies in his game. The jab that he used against Al Iaquinta really coming back to fruition, even against Conor, and really dominating the first and early part of the second round of this fight. And then his confidence, his moxie to go for an armbar and give up position at the end of the first round and put his back against the ground. And in the second, to go from mount to mounted triangle, and then to give him, again, put his back on the ground, be in a bad position just to submit Justin Gaethje. The confidence of this guy at 29-0 now to be able to pull off these techniques and show his versatility against one of the most dangerous fighters in the world is spectacular. And as spectacular as that was, the post-fight in its own way was even more satisfying. So Khabib wins the fight, and immediately, his team goes crazy. There's not a lot of people in the venue because of COVID and everything else, so you can kind of hear his team, and they're going crazy. They're, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And he turns to him. He gets up off the ground. He turns to him, and he just kind of puts his hands up like, yeah, just give me a second, guys. Give me a second. Everybody calm down. And he walks to the center of the cage, And almost like the weight of the world had fallen off his shoulders, he collapses to the ground and he starts to cry. I'm going to get emotional freaking talking about it, god dang it. He starts to cry, and it was just this pouring out of emotions, sacrifice, the everything that was on his shoulders, everything that had affected him, the adversity he had gone through to make it to this fight and win it. It all came out at once. And of course, most of that we're going to talk about is Khabib's dad. I mean, this man lost his dad in May, and his dad had this master plan for Khabib. He wanted him to be the greatest fighter ever. Not only a father-son relationship, but a mentor-mentee, best friend relationship. This was the guy that Khabib not only looked to for advice, wisdom, mentorship, coach, father. He looked at him as a best friend. He looked at him as the person he wanted to be around the most. Khabib doesn't like doing a lot of media. He doesn't like doing interviews. But when he got to talk about his dad, it was like a different person. He would glow. He would speak so highly of him. He would not stop talking. He just loved his dad that much. And he lost his best friend in May. And you couldn't imagine, I can't imagine, going out and fighting someone after the loss of the person that pushed me to do this as my career from such a young age. A kid from a small village, one of the smallest villages in Russia, Dagestan, and his father is the head of that village. He's the one keeping kids out of trouble, training them in martial arts and training them in Sambo, and just a well-respected, one of the most well-respected men in Russia, and unfortunately loses him to COVID. And in that moment, all the weight is just falling on him. He's crying. His guys, his team, his corner come into the octagon, and I didn't see this at first, and I got to give Kelsey credit. She pointed this out, and I just thought, I didn't think anything of it when I saw it, but his corner comes into the octagon, and they start taking his gloves off. And I'm like, okay, he's taking his gloves off. He's just got done fighting. But then Kelsey says, is he retiring? And I was like, surely not right now. And then all of a sudden, I see him grab those gloves and put them right in the center of the octagon, and I'm like, oh my God, Khabib is going to retire right here, right now. And sure enough, folks, Khabib Nurmagomedov, after 29 wins straight, a dominant fairy tale career, has retired. And his reasons were simple. He said, look, there's no way I'm coming in here and doing this again without my father. This was his dream. This was his idea for me, his work, his mentorship, his everything was me being the champion of the world and being undefeated and finishing this career off. And he goes, I promised my mother, who told me, don't do this without your father. It's not right without your dad. He said, listen, I've got to finish this business with Justin Gaethje, and then I'm done. He promised his mother that he would retire, and he just can't see himself doing it without his father, because why would he? The motivation behind this historic run has been to please his father, to be there to show his father that everything that he did for him since he was a young boy, it turned out the way he wanted. He made Khabib into this amazing fighter, but better yet, he made him into this amazing person. This guy hadn't done anything wrong outside of the cage. He's always been a model citizen, a role model for young kids, never in any trouble, never with really any flaws in the cage. Yes, he lost one round to Conor and apparently here to Justin Gaethje, even though I didn't think he lost this round. But really a perfect fighter, and almost, no one's perfect, but this guy has been damn near as far as his ability to be an ambassador for the sport and one of the best champions ever. Khabib is not materialistic. He doesn't care about anything going on outside of his bubble. And he said this leading up to the fight. He said this in press conferences and in interviews that he was excited for his journey after, fighting. He wanted to be with his family, be with his village, raise his kids, and just, be ready for the next chapter in his life. And yeah, the show's over for Khabib, and the eagle has finally landed.